Welcome to Lazy Reader. Today we're diving into Peter Thiel's 0 to 1, a book that asks a huge question. How do you actually build the future? And Thiel's answer, well, it's pretty bold. He says real progress isn't about just making things a little bit better. It's about creating something that has never existed before.
Right off the bat, Thiel throws down the gauntlet with this idea. Think about it. We're all taught to look up to the greats, Gates, Page, Brin. But he says if your dream is to be the next one of them, you've already missed the point. You're not learning from their creativity, you're just copying the result of it.
So, okay, if just copying the big guys is a total dead end, then what are you supposed to do? How do you actually move from a world of copies to a world of, true creation? That's the big question at the heart of 0 to 1. So let's unpack it. To get to that answer, Thiel starts by completely reframing how we even think about progress itself. He argues that pretty much every advancement humanity has ever made, big or small, can be put into one of just two buckets. So here's the framework. It's pretty simple. On one side, you have horizontal progress, which is basically just copying things that already work. You can think of it as scaling or expanding. And on the other side, you have vertical progress, doing something completely new. This is invention, discovery, creation. Let's put some numbers on it to make it clear. Horizontal progress is going from 1 to n. You take one typewriter that works, and you build 100 more. It's predictable, right? Vertical progress, on the other hand, is that massive leap from 0 to 1. It's looking at that typewriter and inventing the very first word processor. It's a jump into a whole new world.
Now, Thiel gives these two ideas some pretty simple names. He calls horizontal progress globalization, taking a successful model from one place and spreading it all over the world. But he calls vertical progress technology, and this is absolutely key. He doesn't just mean computers or software. For him, technology is any new and better way of doing something. A new kind of medicine is technology. A new energy source is technology. That is the real engine of creation.
All right, now we get to what is probably Thiel's most controversial, most talked about idea. We are all taught from day one that competition is good. It's the engine of capitalism. Well, Thiel argues the exact opposite. Competition is a destructive trap that you have to escape at all costs.
I mean, this quote right here, it just flips everything we think we know about business on its head. Think about it. When companies are in a brutal fight with each other, they're forced to slash prices, they fight over tiny little features, and eventually all their profits just get competed away. Thiel says real capitalism is the opposite. It's about creating something so new, so unique, that you have the market all to yourself.
Economics class gives us these two extremes. On one end, you have perfect competition. Everyone's selling the same stuff, prices get driven down to the bone, and over the long run, nobody really makes any money. Just picture all the nearly identical coffee shops on a single city block. Then on the other end, you have a monopoly, a business that's so different, it defines its own market, sets its own price, and can actually invest its profits into building an even better future.
And this is how we're all taught to see the business world, right? As this noisy, crowded place where companies are mostly similar, all just fighting for a slightly bigger piece of the exact same pie.
But here's the reality check from Thiel. That whole idea, it's a total illusion. The reality isn't a smooth spectrum, it's a binary. There is a massive, gaping chasm between businesses. You are either one of many, stuck in that brutal scrum, or you are one of one. And that single distinction changes absolutely everything.
So, if competition is this terrible disease, what's the cure? Well, it's about building what Thiel calls a creative monopoly. Now, this isn't about being some evil monopolist who crushes all their rivals. It's about being so wildly innovative that you create a brand new market, making you a category of one.
And this is where things get really interesting, kind of paradoxical even. Real monopolies, the big ones, go to crazy lengths to hide the fact that they're a monopoly. They don't want the regulation. Google is the perfect example. They totally dominate search, right? But publicly, they'll frame themselves as just a tiny little player in the gigantic global advertising market. They're downplaying their power, while all the struggling competitive companies are doing the exact opposite. They're pretending they're unique just to get an investment.
Thiel does this brilliant thing where he adapts Tolstoy's famous first line from Anna Karenina, and honestly, it just nails the whole argument. Success is about being uniquely different. Failure is just about being one of the crowd, trapped in a war where nobody, in the end, really wins.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Monopoly? Isn't that a bad word? Well, Thiel argues that these creative monopolies are actually amazing for society. They don't limit choice. They invent whole new categories of things for us to choose from. Their huge profits aren't just hoarded, they're plowed back into ambitious, long-term research, the kind of bold, world-changing projects that companies fighting for survival could never, ever afford.
Okay, so this all sounds great, but how do you actually find an idea that's powerful enough to build one of these monopolies? How do you start thinking in this 0-to-1 way? Well, Thiel offers up a single, really powerful question to get you started. This is it. This is his famous, some might say infamous, interview question. It sounds so simple, but it is incredibly hard to answer well. It forces you to find a contrarian truth, an idea that's not just different, but important, and that almost nobody else agrees with. That right there is the seed of every great 0-to-1 company.
It's so easy to get this one wrong. A bad answer is something that sounds smart but is actually just a popular opinion, like saying, our education system is broken. Okay, yeah, tons of people agree with that. A good answer is a truth that very, very few people currently see. It's a totally fresh way of seeing how the world could be different.
So what you're really looking for is what Thiel calls a secret. A secret isn't some impossible mystery. It's a difficult but doable truth that's kind of hidden from the outside world because people just aren't looking for it. You want a perfect example? Airbnb. The secret was that millions of people would be willing to let complete strangers sleep in their spare rooms. It was hidden in plain sight.
But hold on, having a great secret, that's not quite enough. You need the right strategy to turn it into a company that lasts. And guess what? It's the opposite of what everyone tells you. It's not about being first.
Yeah, we hear it all the time, right? First mover advantage. But just think about it for a second. MySpace was first, not Facebook. There were tons of search engines before Google. Being first is totally irrelevant if someone else comes along after you and does it way better. The real goal is to be the last mover, to be the company that dominates that market for decades to come.
There's this quote from a legendary chess grandmaster that just captures this idea perfectly. You can't just focus on your first few moves. From the very beginning, you have to have a crystal clear vision of how you're going to win. The end game is the only thing that matters.
And that really brings us to the final, unavoidable question that Thiel's whole book forces you to ask yourself. Are you building a copy or are you building a legacy? Is your life's work a 1 to N effort, just adding more of the same to the world? Or are you aiming for 0 to 1, creating something new, something unique, something that will last?
To keep finding those big ideas that challenge you to think differently, make sure you subscribe to Lazy Reader.